Luck was not on Seattle's side when they took on the Ottawa Senators over the weekend. Now in Montreal, looking to end the skid. Can they do it, or will they have to reset once they get to Climate Pledge Arena? Let's talk about that and more on today's episode of Locked On Kraken.
You are Locked On Kraken, your daily podcast on the Seattle Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We are the Seattle Kraken.
Hey, what do you say, Seattle hockey fans? Welcome to another episode of Locked On Kraken, part of Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Erica L. Ayala, and the Locked On Podcast Network is excited to bring you this episode, and it is sponsored by our friends over at Sleeper. If you want a great opportunity to play some daily fantasy hockey, then Sleeper is the place to go. Download the Sleeper app and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. No one's sleeping on Seattle this year, that's for sure. And if anything, I think the Seattle Kraken need to awaken from our slumber. Another loss, this time to the struggling Ottawa Senators. I mean, if you read any of Jeff Baker's articles over the weekend, I mean, he was calling their defense porous. The goaltender they had, not a great save percentage, and then they get a shutout. Second ever shutout for the Seattle Kraken this season, I should say, not ever. But we've been shut out twice. And, Ottawa's a team that we should have been able to beat. And this is where we have to start having a real conversation, folks. This is where, we say things like hold fast, stay true. And I believe that. And I'm going to say it later on the show. We say things like defend the deep. But what does that mean? What does that actually look like for this Seattle Kraken team? And unfortunately, we don't know the answer to that. And that's part of the problem. And by we, I mean, yes, I don't really know what the answer is to that. But I'm not sure that the Seattle Kraken do either. And therein lies a big part of the problem. We talked about it the other day, and even with RJ and Dylan when they were on Locked On Kraken with me on Saturday, this seems to be a team that lacks identity. They are not meeting success, but they're also not even losing. I think this is what I'm trying to say and why I'm so ticked off and I'm just confused is because it's one thing if you lose because you want to play the way you play. So once again, Joey Daccord has come under scrutiny because he made a play. Actually, both goals were opportunities that Ottawa took where Seattle Kraken made mistakes. And a decent amount of that had to do with Joey Daccord being a goaltender that likes to move the puck in the defensive zone. Now, if that's how Joey Dax is going to lose a game, at least we know he's playing how he always plays. Everyone knows Joey Daccord moves the puck. I'm assuming, including the other team, which is why Ottawa was in position to put pressure on Joey Daccord and the Seattle Kraken defense. And a bounce or two went their way, and they capitalized on that because they knew the scout, they knew the team that they were playing, and they figured that'd be a way for them to get a win. But to get upset about Joey Daccord playing exactly how we know Joey is going to play, that's not what I'm talking about here. What I'm talking about is I don't know what this year's Seattle Kraken team does particularly well. I know things that we're working on, and I know things that individuals I think are doing effectively. But what do we as a team do really, really well? Do you have an answer? Because I don't have an answer to that question right now. I'm not saying that I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something, but I don't. And that's what I mean when I say I don't know that there's an identity to this team. You know, and no, I don't mean identity in that. Oh, well, we got to be better at defense, or we don't want to pinch. Those are all, if anything, bad habits for the Seattle Kraken this year, but they're not true identity. That's not what I mean when I'm talking about identity. I mean, are we a net front team? Are we a team that's really aggressive on the back check? Are we a team that's really great 6-on-5? I mean, these are just different scenarios, right? Are we a good OT team? The answer, definitely not. Are we a good shootout team? Nope, don't think we are. What are we good at? What are we good at? I don't know. And that's frustrating when we are through 25 games in this season. It's early December. We have to figure out what kind of team Seattle is going to be. And yes, this game against Montreal is an opportunity, but we have a homestand coming up, and I almost feel like that's more important. We're going to talk about Montreal a little bit. I also want to take a break from kind of talking specifically about the Seattle Kraken team and talk about the Winter Classic, but something's got to give. I've been saying this for a few weeks now, and I don't know what it's going to take. It's starting to really get me down that nothing to excite, to even tick off, or shame, which is strong, but nothing to irritate this team to a better and more consistent performance has been working. I can't tell you everything that Dave and the rest of the coaches have been doing, but whatever they've been doing, whatever the players have been doing for themselves and even for each other, we have to say that it's not yielding good results. And, if I'm being honest, you can sometimes take a loss, maybe the Toronto loss as an example, and say, okay, we didn't get the result that we wanted, but we were doing the right things. Those games are few and far between for this Seattle Kraken squad. They just are. It's getting frustrating, and we're running out of runway. By the end of this season, which leads us right to the Winter Classic, which we're going to talk about next, the Seattle Kraken squad has to decide who they're going to be. They have to decide what they are willing to do to turn things around. They just have to. It has to happen. It has to happen. Before we talk a little bit about that, I want to go to natural stat trick. One thing I would love to see the Seattle Kraken commit to is more of a net front presence. And even we talked about this with RJ. I talked about this with RJ and Dylan on our Saturday episode, our pregame episode. And you're starting to hear Dave Haxtell talk about this a little bit more, especially as Jaden Schwartz is out of the lineup. But once again, let's look at this heat map. Once again, we see the Seattle Kraken outworked in the net front. Look at this heat map for the Ottawa Senators. Right in front of Joey Decord. This is breakaway opportunities. This is second chance rebound opportunities. This is traffic in front of the net. This is what we're seeing against most teams. And then, this is the heat map against Ottawa. And here's what it looks like on the other side. You heard Nick Olczyk talk about this a little bit throughout the game and post game as well. These shots that we're taking, We can't afford to look for the perfect shot anymore. That left circle, once again, I talked about it last time we looked at a heat map, but we're seeing that the Kraken are wanting to shoot here. I get it. Everyone has their favorite spots, but you've got to start. I mean, just a little blip here, nothing up and down, up and down the slot as compared to some of our opponents, and they are finding that home run area. There's at the high slot, there's separation between one heat map and the next. How do we get this offense moving? I mean, come on, you gotta do something. And I talked with RJ and Dylan about this, and we were talking about, Jordan Eberle is usually the guy that's touted out when the team, when someone has to represent the team, but the team's not doing well. And, I got a comment that said, oh, well, because we're talking about captaincy, you shouldn't pick a captain based on who's good to speak to media. That's not what we meant. And you need a guy that's going to be honest and that can take the brunt of media asking questions like I'm asking. What's going wrong? Why aren't we meeting the consistency? What is the identity of this team? And so we got a very Eberle response, and you probably know what he had to say. It's a difference between learning how to win, learning how to play to win, as opposed to playing not to lose. Here's Eberle after the shutout in Ottawa.
More inside and trying to find some pucks around there. I mean, their goalie played really well. I thought for the most part we battled, we created a lot. We just, like I said, we're trying to find more second chances inside. I mean, we made 2 mistakes and they ended up in the back of our net. Those are tough.
I know you don't spend a lot of time killing penalties, but what did you see out of the PK tonight to keep you guys in this one?
Yeah, they made had some big blocks, big clears. They kept us in this hockey game. I mean, power play, we had some looks too. We couldn't find a way to beat them tonight. Those are, like I said, those are frustrating games when you feel like you're creating a lot, and every time you're out there, you're generating offensive time chances, and it's not going in. So, I mean, it's not going in. We just got to find a way to get one.
How critical are these games now? I mean, it's early in the season, but I mean, things, as you mentioned, they're starting to slide a little bit. How important is it to not let that happen?
I mean, they're all important. Going forward, it doesn't matter who you're playing. Every game is important. I feel like we found more ways. I've said this before, more ways to lose than we have to win. I mean, even the last game against Toronto, I mean, the line between winning and losing is so thin, and when we feel like we're there, but we're just not finding ways. So that just comes down to us. I mean, we have to find more ways to win. Obviously we got a couple guys out, and this team relies a lot on its depth, but we've got guys stepping up, and we need to find ways to create some offense and find ways to win games.
So that was Eberle after the 2-0 loss to Ottawa. Once again, talking about finding ways to win instead of just playing not to lose, and talking about how frustrating it is. So what's going to give? What is going to give? We're going to give a little bit of a break to that conversation before getting ready for tonight's game day. Woo! Let's hope it's a good one against Montreal. But we're going to talk Winter Classic activations coming up on Locked On Kraken. Today's episode of Locked On Kraken is brought to you by our friends at Sleeper. A new NHL season brings all sorts of possibilities. Will Vince Dunn be our leading goal scorer? Will Philip Grubauer be another Vezina Trophy candidate? And could the Seattle Kraken hoist the Stanley Cup? Well, got a lot of work to do to see that. But you know what? You could win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy hockey app of Locked On NHL. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports, especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey. You can find NFL, NBA, MLB, college football, in addition to NHL on Sleeper. You can, go head to head against your friends in any of the daily fantasy picks. And of course, you can show off your expertise by picking studs like Ovechkin, Crosby, McCann, or even Joey Decord to record more or less than their sleeper projections in things like goals, assists, saves, plus minus, and so many more for any given game. To win 100x your bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me, Kraken fans. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention and nail your picks so you can start winning big. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you'll get a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and for locational availability. In addition to listening to Locked On Kraken as part of your daily destination, don't forget to head over to Locked On NHL. And on Friday, I did the women's hockey spotlight along with Gil and Rachel. So catch up there. And of course, everything else happening around the league, including the Seattle Kraken, of course, will be hosting the Winter Classic. Here's that Winter Classic logo instead of my face for those watching on YouTube. Not to mention, oh man, this is the collar of those unis. This is the head-to-head with Vegas. Ollie Bjorkstrand wearing it. I mean, I'm really starting to love them. I just talked with Dylan and RJ about that as well. But we also got some additional information from the National Hockey League about the Winter Classic. And before we talk about that, though, the NHL is also going to be having some meetings upcoming in Seattle. And our amazing friend of the pod, Allison Lucan, wrote about that over on NHL.com/Kraken. So make sure you check that out. Very curious to see what we'll hear coming out of those meetings. But I wanted to once again talk about the NHL Winter Classic. And if you listen to Locked On NHL, the women's hockey spotlight, then unfortunately, no, we will not see any women's hockey played at the Winter Classic. I spoke to Senior Vice President of the PWHL, Jana Hefford, and did some reporting on that. It was in the mix, but ultimately Jana and the rest of the PWHL wanted to start their inaugural season in their home markets, which makes a lot of sense. So they will have an activation for the All-Star game in Toronto, but not for the Winter Classic. So that was a little bit of a bummer, but I completely understand. Here's what we do know. That and we're actually hoping to talk to someone from the league about this, but kind of that behind the scenes docu-series, lead up to the Winter Classic is going to be something that we see, the road to the Winter Classic. And so we're expecting to speak once again to Steve Mayer, because he did road to the NHL following of all classes Shane Wright's draft. And we talk to him about the kind of the drama behind that. But so we'll see the first episode December 13th. So coming up here, and we'll be able to check in on the road to the NHL Winter Classic presented by Enterprise through that docuseries. Another important date, Monday, December 18th, is when they plan to install the ice for the Winter Classic. I'm going to read directly from this email. The 2024 Discover NHL Winter Classic ice plant will arrive at T-Mobile Park on Monday, December 18th. After the installation of field protection, 243 ice pans, and a ring of dasher boards to enclose the rink, workers will create a nearly 2-inch thick ice surface at the ballpark. Fans will be able to follow the entire rink build through interactive features and extensive coverage on NHL Social, NHL.com, and the NHL Network. There will also be a legacy event on Saturday, December 30th. This is with the NHL, the Seattle Kraken, One Roof Foundation, and Virginia Mason Franciscan Health. They're going to refurbish an outdoor play space in conjunction with Metro Parks Tacoma. The ceremonial groundbreaking and community celebration will take place, as I said, on December 30th. That's a Saturday at 10 a.m. Pacific time at Verlo Playfield. Enterprise Fan Village. So for those of you who will be in the area, this one is for you. And I will let you know, I will be in the area. I'll be at that game against Philadelphia on the 29th. So let's connect while I'm in Seattle. But the Fan Village will be a free 2-day fan festival open to the public at Lumen Field in the North parking lot, December 31st, starting at the conclusion of the Seahawks game and closing 8 p.m. PT. Hours on January 1st are 9 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. and then 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. The NHL and corporate partners will treat hockey fans to many interactive things, giveaways. I mean, I really had a lot of fun walking around the village, but we were in Florida. So if anything, I would escape to the Hockey is for Everyone bus, or now it's United by Hockey, which will also be at the Fan Village. Returning for a second season, United by Hockey is a unique interactive experience that celebrates the game's trailblazers. Everett Fitzhugh has been a part of that. I was just with Kwame Mason, who helped curate a digital experience where you get to hear from one of the Paralympic skaters for USA Hockey. So it's really cool. United Voices podcast, wall and adaptive hockey display aims to raise awareness and educate fans about diverse individuals within the game of hockey, and emphasizing that, as the NHL certainly likes to say, hockey is for everyone. The team practices will take place Sunday, December 31st, and will be available on social media, but also right here on Locked On Kraken. And then they have some other stuff here listed, for video content and stuff like that. I'm getting really excited. I am hoping to plan some things with some local businesses. I'm still working on that. I'll be in town for a few days. So I want us to have a good time. And hopefully anything that we do for Locked On Kraken will be accessible to all fans. That's the plan. But don't fret. For those of you who are part of the Locked On Kraken Insiders community, you best believe that I will have exclusive interviews that will continue to come to you, if not only, certainly first. And so thank you so much. If you are not a part of our Locked On Kraken Insiders, you can do so by signing up for a platform called Subtext. And here it goes right on the screen. I'll also read it out to you. You can join by texting 918-731-3154. That's 918-731-3154. And we're going to have a lot of good stuff, like I said, happening around the Winter Classic. I think regardless of where the Seattle Kraken are in their record at that time of year, we're expecting to have a good time, and we want to celebrate accordingly. So speaking of, the Seattle Kraken do have a game against Montreal. Let's talk about what we need to know going into tonight, a game day, before we take on Montreal, and then get the guys back home to see if they can string together some wins at Climate Pledge Arena. We'll talk about that coming up on Locked On Kraken. Today's episode of Locked On Kraken also brought to you by Indeed. When you're drafting your fantasy team, do you ever wish you could do the same thing with your business? Well, if you're building a roster to win the league, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Don't spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills when you can do it all with Indeed. Find top talent fast with Indeed's suite of powerful hiring tools like Indeed Instant Match, assessments, and even virtual interviews. I think it's great when you use a platform like Indeed as an employer. You know that you are spending time doing the right things and the things that will help your business grow faster, as opposed to worrying about some of the nuances and if platforms are going to work. Indeed has a solid record, and it can save you time, which ultimately helps save you money. Indeed knows when you're growing your own business, you have to make every dollar count. That's why with Indeed, you only pay for quality applications that match your must-have job requirements. So visit Indeed.com/locked on to start hiring now. Again, that's Indeed.com/LOCKEDON. And that is where you will get your. So just go to Indeed.com/locked on. Again, that's Indeed.com/LOCKEDON. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application pricing not available for everyone. Need to hire? Then you need Indeed. And indeed, it's always a pleasure to have you join me on Locked On Kraken. Erica L. Ayala, your host here. And, I wanted to talk about the Winter Classic, but we also got to keep it funky and talk a little bit about this Montreal squad. We're going to see them tonight. And you know what? We can't take any team for granted. And you know what? That includes not taking ourselves for granted. And some of these inconsistencies, some of this lack of what appears to be just any real spark or drive or motivation, a part of that really just has to do with the Kraken focusing on themselves. But for the sake of the exercise, I'm going to let you know what we're looking, what we're up against. Overall record for the Canadians, 10-11-3. The Seattle Kraken are 8-10-6. So we've got 22 points on the season. They have 23. Their home record, 5-7-1. So that presents a little bit of an opportunity, although our away record is 4-5-5. We are 3-4-3 in our last 10 games. They are 3-6-1. And now you might see those numbers and say, okay, well, they're not doing so great either. Well, here's the rub. We've come up against teams like that, Ottawa, Chicago, just to name a few. And, we have not played our game. We've allowed our opponent too many times this season to dictate pace. And for a team like Montreal looking to get into the win column, we don't need to be the team to help them do that. We don't need to be so gratuitous of a team that we're always helping other teams get back into the win column. Okay. They're just coming off an OT game. Let's expose that. Let's use that to our advantage instead of allowing them to use it as fuel against us. Montreal right now, they are 6th overall in the Atlantic Division. I mentioned the 23 points. They're at a 4.79 win percentage. And the Seattle Kraken, we just lost to the eighth team in the Atlantic. So if we can't beat team number 8 in the Atlantic, we definitely have to worry about 6. As far as the Pacific Division, the Seattle Kraken keeps slipping. We are right now in 5th overall, 440 win percentage. Just a click over the Anaheim Ducks, the Edmonton Oilers, and the San Jose Sharks. It's tough. It's a tough go around. And if we don't figure it out now, Anaheim has shown that they can figure some things out. How long is Edmonton going to be at the bottom of the table? San Jose is another situation, but we don't want to get closer and closer to San Jose. We need to start moving up. Calgary has surpassed us. The LA Kings, I keep saying, is a team that's pretty steady. They're staying in that 3rd spot. Vancouver, they've had a good season this year. And of course, the Vegas Golden Knights, the 16-5-4 right now. Just really looking great. And you know what? Here's another thing. Okay, we don't win against Montreal. Then we've got New Jersey, Tampa Bay, Minnesota, Florida. I guess I could just look at the schedule so I'm not turning my head. We've got New Jersey, Tampa Bay, Minnesota, Florida, Chicago, and LA coming up at home. We hit LA again, Dallas, LA, the Ducks, and Calgary away. And then we have that one game against Philly before we take on the Vegas Golden Knights. This is an important month for the Seattle Kraken. It's not that I don't care about the wins and losses, but here's what I'm looking to measure. Are we improving with our consistency in certain areas? Are we starting to play with a little bit of moxie? But don't take my word for it. Here's what Brian Dumoulin had to say and what he thinks has to happen starting tonight for the Kraken to get moving in the right direction.
I think it obviously starts with a win. I mean, we've been playing good hockey. We've had chances in all these games that we've played to come on the other side of these, and we haven't. And I mean, sometimes that's the way it goes. I mean, we can't get discouraged. Obviously, we can tighten up some areas and we can do some different things, but I think maybe just a little bit more hunger and a little bit more determination to win. But at the end of the day, we just got to try to get a win here today.
It sounds simple, and it really is. I think Brian hits on a lot of really good things, but when things aren't going well and you don't want to overcoach things, or you don't want to have practice, which I still think the Seattle Kraken should be having practice. Okay. We had another canceled practice. I think you need to be having practice, because chemistry and identity is a part of the issue. That notwithstanding, we can't, what's done is done. There was no practice on Sunday. He hit the ice this morning. Andrei Burakovsky has been skating with the team without a red jersey. So that's good news. You just got to win. And whatever the systems are, whatever the game plan is, it's obviously not working anyway. 3 games on the road, 3 losses, and we don't want to add a 4th to that column. So I've been saying it before. I said it with RJ and Dylan. Have fun, play free. The only thing you should focus on is getting a win. And I want to see if the Seattle Kraken can just focus on winning a hockey game. Can they go back to basics, go back to instincts, and do whatever it takes to get a win? Do they have that fire? Are they going to be able to stoke the fire in their belly to do whatever it takes to get a win starting tonight? No, it's not a divisional opponent. No, it's not an opponent that we saw in the playoffs last year. There's not all this drama. I mean, of course, there's the whole Shane Wright thing, I guess. But Shane's not with us, okay? At least not yet. I wouldn't be surprised if we see him again. I actually would love to see Shane Wright sooner rather than later. We'll talk about that some other episode. But go get the win, boys. Come on, fellas. Just go get the win. I have to fill a 30-minute show, but in the essence of this show is go play hard, get the win. Don't settle for a win. Don't be content with a win. I want you to play in a manner that if you do not win the hockey game, that it will take you anywhere from 7 to 10 minutes to fix your face, because you determined before you hit the ice that you are going to win the game. No questions asked, whatever it takes. Now, that can be heartbreaking when you go all in and you fall short. But the one thing that you have is no regrets. And then I guess the second is, you know how far you can push your body. You can push your mindset. You know what the baseline is. And then you work to get stronger and better at that. We have not played some of our worst hockey, I don't think, this year. It's gotten dangerously close. But that's the dissatisfaction. We're not playing terrible. And we're not playing great. And we can't seem to figure out how to get out of this mediocre box that we have put ourselves in season 3. Bust out of the box, boys. Just focus on getting a win. Focus on getting a win. Show me you're almost, dare I say, desperate. Show me some desperation. If you don't like the word desperation, because I think it is a little heavy, first week of December, show me that you're motivated to win. Show me that you're inspired, that you are empowered to go and get a win in Montreal, whatever it takes. Show me some fire. And on tomorrow's episode, I am going to issue a permission slip for the Seattle Kraken to officially defend the deep. Because, we say it. I've got my poster back here. We say it, but maybe the boys need permission. Air quotes for those not watching on YouTube. Maybe the boys need some permission. And you know what? Here at Locked On Kraken, we are happy to oblige. So on tomorrow's episode, I have prepared a permission slip. That's right. For the remainder of the homestand in the middle of December for the Seattle Kraken to officially defend the deep. Thank you very much. That is our show. Until tomorrow, hold fast, stay true, be kind to yourselves, be kind to one another, and it's a game day. So wear those colors proudly and put some, let's fire up this team so that they can dig deep and really mean it. Don't go through the motions. I want you to really mean it, guys, when you hit the ice. We'll see how they do, and I'll catch you on the next episode. Peace out.